Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of our motor racing interviews. Last month, as everybody knows, I went to Nashville and attended the big weekend of the Music City Grand Prix, and I'm proud to say that we've now brought on a Trans Am driver who competed that weekend. I have my co-host and friend, Justin, and we have legendary sports car driver, Doug Pederson with us. Hey, Doug, how you doing?
Very good. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So, Justin, are you glad to meet Doug Pederson, one of the Trans Am champions?
I really am. I mean, what better way to start out the month than with a championship driver of Trans Am sports car racing? So,
yeah. So, Doug, tell everyone a little bit of what you're known for.
Well, I started racing a little late in life. I was 48 years old and I was tired of working just crazy hours. So I thought, why don't I start racing cars? Because I've always loved cars, been in the auto industry for a long time. So in 1998, I did that. I started racing little Formula Mazdas. I really like open wheel racing, and then kind of matured and progressed into the production cars, and Trans Am was very appealing because for racing it's a reasonable cost. I mean, racing's expensive for sure, but Trans Am is a reasonable cost and one heck of a lot of fun.
Great to hear. So when did you make your first start in racing?
Well, I started racing the Formula Mazdas in 1998. So that was, I was 48 years old. I'm 71 years old now. And, starting off with an open wheel car, you learn an awful lot. So I was able to carry that open wheel experience into the production cars, which you have a sense of safety in a production car. It might be a false sense, but you have that sense of safety in a production car, in a enclosed cockpit. And my wife's happier with me running the Trans Am series.
Does Trans Am stand for like Trans America or something, or what does it stand for?
Probably. I have no idea. I just race.
you race. I love it.
I love it, man. Yeah. So when did you win your first race?
I won my first race in 2012. Was my first year racing in Trans Am. I was racing it with the TA cars, the bigger, the faster cars. So that was Mossport in Canada. I think that was my first win. Tony Ave had broken down. I was in second. I inherited the win. I was happy.
That's
But
pretty
you
cool.
were.
Do you have any questions, Justin? Well, yes, you do, but what questions do you have?
So Doug, what would you say the biggest difference to a stock car, to a Trans Am car would be? What's the biggest difference between the two?
Well, I don't know too much about, stock cars or other racing. Trans Am, there are no real driver aids. The cars are I race in the TA2 now, which is very competitive. I mean, just super competitive. It's almost a spec car that you buy and drive. So still pretty fast, but fun to drive.
how fast do you think you're going on a weekly basis? You say still pretty fast, but
Yeah, I think we were at Nashville. I think we were about 160 miles an hour. So some of the guys might have been a little bit faster than that.
okay.
That's interesting. And just now that you brought that up, I must ask, was part of the reason it was 160 compared to other race cars, is part of that because of the fact that Nashville was a street course with a bunch of turns, and so you might need to reduce the horsepower?
Well, the horsepower is pretty well fixed. I mean, you're always looking to get the maximum horsepower out of your motor. Um, the like in the past years, we've gone to Daytona. And at Daytona, we'll probably do 174, 175, and I'm just trying to go by memory. So we would be a little bit faster, but you know, we do an awful lot of braking, turning, trying to get back to the throttle to go as fast as we can, and most of us are left foot brakers, so we're not using the clutch once we get started. We'll use the clutch to get the car moving, but once it's moving, we no longer have our foot on the clutch at all. It's just left foot on the brake and right foot on the gas, and blipping and downshifting. And we only, in the TA2, we only have 4 speeds. It's only a 4-speed gearbox. So, and the motor puts out, I don't know, 540 horsepower maybe. So, but they're pretty fast.
That's cool. What was racing in Nashville like? Like, what was the weekend like for you?
Well, it was a little frustrating. I had some little issues, braking issues to start off with. We had very little practice time. So you really, and no one had ever raced or no one had ever driven on the track. So I had some braking issues for the first 2 practices, and then we went right into qualifying. So for me, I started off a little behind right from the start. But the track is very intimidating, very high speed, walls just everywhere. Most of the turns are first gear, but you have a nice low first gear, second gear, third gear. So I really enjoy the track, but it is very intimidating. In practice, I came close to hitting the wall at some pretty high speeds because I couldn't figure out what was going off a little bit with my car. So
Would you say that is the most challenging circuit you've ever been on in your short career?
yeah, I would say so. I mean, I was very concerned the first few minutes of driving my car because I didn't want to wreck the car. But you have to move with the traffic. You have to keep up. So Trans Am did a very good job on working with us. Our first couple of laps were behind the pace car, just so everybody could get just a little bit of a feel for, you know, how the track is cambered. You're on camber some areas, off camber others. So yeah, it's a very intimidating track, and I believe we're going back next year, so it'll be almost as intimidating next year as it was this year.
That's really cool. Hopefully I can be there at the next Trans Am race there. That was a lot of fun. Like, that was a big weekend for me as a race fan. I got to go to all the events, and I got to meet the one and only Roger Penske.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
The vibe was really good. And, you know, I did notice, now that you brought that stuff up, that some of the drivers were, you know, sometimes struggling to turn a little bit on certain parts of the track. Like, I saw Tony Ave drive by, and there was a point where he smoked his tires trying to find a feel for it. So yeah, that was a big track.
That sounds like Tony Ave. I mean, he's always, you know, on the edge for sure.
Yeah.
And you don't know the edge is until you get right up to it. And like with Tony, you were talking about, he actually exceeded the grip of the tires, probably locked up a tire just a little bit, smokes a tire. Until you do that, you don't really know where the mechanical edge of the tire grip really is.
So you said you started behind the 8 ball on that weekend, but are you satisfied with how that weekend went after you got your car, driving? Maybe it was a little bit tight, maybe it was a little bit loose in some areas. What were you finding the most with?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't qualify well because of my problems in practice. So I qualified like 23rd or 24th, which is horrible for me. Normally, I'm more closer to the 10th or 12th. Yeah. So that was pretty disappointing. And then in the race, my car was operating fine until I had an electrical problem, and I caused the first full course yellow after maybe 18 laps, 20 laps, something like that. My car just died. I knew it had a problem, and I was trying to get back to the pits with the motor really coughing and sputtering, and it just died. Just totally just died. So I was in the middle of the track. Boris came up and gave me a nice little love tap in the back of my car. He wasn't, I don't think he was watching the waving yellow flags too well, and the turns are all blind, so he didn't know where I was, but they had a waving yellow flag. A lot of guys passed me without hitting me, except Boris. Clobbered into me pretty good.
Oh,
yeah. So I was out.
That's really
you
tough, parts failures can be, disappointing,
And
expensive.
Yeah. Well, we have a pretty good sponsor for our racing. So
I will say, for the record, 87 was one of my favorite numbers when it came to racing, just because Joe Nemechek was one of my favorite drivers. And so I always like seeing the 87 car doing good in any sort of racing series. Like, it's always great,
Yeah, and drivers are a little on the superstitious side. We all stay with our number. That was my number from the very beginning, and we always have a favorite number that we want to have on our race car.
Yeah. Just a question. Were you involved? Like, did you race in the Trans Am division when you won the championship before you became a Trans Am 2 driver?
Yes, I was very fortunate to win the Trans Am championship in 2013 and 2014. So I had back-to-back years, which was pretty good. I really enjoyed that.
What was winning the first championship like?
Well, just the cars are so fast. And those 2 years we were on Goodyear tires, and I really liked the Goodyear tires. Had a very good motor. It's almost out of body experience, because you just go to yourself, I think I've just won the championship. You're in the car and you're driving and you go, okay, I think one of the later races, I didn't win the race, but I had so many points. I was like, okay, I just won the championship while I'm in the car, while I'm still racing, or maybe the race had just ended. So pretty special.
So give us kind of the overview of a day for you.
Well, a lot of travel. I fly in the day before we're going to practice. I'm no spring chicken, so I'm a little bit careful about what I eat, and I make sure that I get plenty of rest. I always go to the track 2 or 3 hours before we're on track. You know, if we're not on track until maybe 1 o'clock for practice or something, I'll still be at the track by 9:30 or so. But I'll have a good breakfast, and I'll talk to my two teammates, Rafa Matos and Adam Andretti, about, okay, what's the setup on the cars? What are they going to do? Because I have two amazing teammates. So I use that and get ready for practice. We have 2 or 3 practices before qualifying. And but a race weekend, all I'm thinking about is racing. I don't think about business much. I don't think about our guests that we might have. I totally focus 100% on the driving part of it, and really, it's all towards qualifying. Qualifying is everything. If you can get a good qualifying session in, which I did not do in Nashville, but if you can get a good qualifying session in, then that whole group, you're in a faster group, and you can progress through the race. So, but we always eat lunch and usually dinner with the team, and I try to get back to the hotel by maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock, and take a quick shower and just relax, watch a little TV, and just really think about what I'm going to do for the race.
That's really cool, man. That's cool that, you spend your time focusing on getting the job done. That's really cool that you're teammates with an Andretti. Not everybody is able to say that.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Not everybody can say that. So
and Adam's a really thoughtful, really helpful guy. He joined the team kind of in the middle of the season. So we are very, very happy to have him on board.
That's really cool. I just have a question, speaking of teammates, and you don't have to answer this if you don't wish, because it might be a little bit of a tough topic, but do you remember the Mid-Ohio race in 2015? Were you in that race at all?
Sure.
From what I saw in the video, when Dreese and Ruman got into it, you were about to take the lead, but you ended up being bumped accidentally and taken out of the race. What was your reaction when that happened, if you had one?
Yeah, Tommy and Amy, they've never been opposed to kind of bumping and moving somebody out of the way. That's really not quite my driving style. So when they were going at it, I was loving it, because they both had better motors than I did for that particular season. And when I saw them really coming together, as I was passing them, I was thinking to myself, I've just won this race. Even though we had a long ways to go, there was no one behind me pushing me with any kind of speed. So as I'm going by them, I'm just going, I'm going to win this race. Oh, I'm going to win this race. And then I don't remember who it was, but they just clipped the rear of my car, and I went smack into the wall. I was a little disappointed with that part of it.
I bet you will.
Yeah, but racing is a kind of a game of intimidation, and they were trying to kind of intimidate each other, and I wanted to take full advantage of them screwing around. I wanted to win the race. Every time I get in my car, I want to win the race. Every time.
That's the way to look at it. And to be honest, when that happened, it kind of reminded me of that race where Dale Earnhardt got into it with Darrell Waltrip at Richmond, because the guy that was running second at the time was Joe Ruttman, and he was about to take the lead, but ended up being collected in the collision, and that allowed Kyle Petty to win. So it kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I remember that race like it was yesterday. I mean, that was a brand new car for me, and or I think it was a new car, but it was the same motor that I had been using. The motor was just a little on the weak side.
Just a little bit on the weak side. What type of motors are you using this year?
Well, this
Getting on
year
that.
is we call it a choice engine. It's a kind of a spec engine that pretty much everybody is running. And I don't know the exact horsepower, but I would guess it's about 540 horsepower. And so all of the front runners will have pretty much the same motor with the same horsepower, which makes it nice. So that you're not worried about, well, Charlie Brown has 10 more horsepower and Sam has 50 more horsepower. That's not the case with TA2.
So I have to ask, earlier in the conversation, you brought up Boris said, so are you pretty close to Boris, or?
Well, I sat next to him in the driver's meeting before the race. And if I had known that he was going to hit me, and then hit me pretty good, I would have told him to watch for the waving yellow flags. I know him well enough to say hi, and he's raced my car a couple of times in the past.
Yes. Okay.
Did you see that musician Scott Burchetta was also in that race?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I
That
think he races with us on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's really cool that he was in that race. Did you encounter him at all during festivities or even on the track?
Yeah, not really. I think he is 4 or 5 cars in front of me. I'm not sure exactly where he qualified, but he would have been, at least at Nashville, he would have been quite a bit in front of me. And so, but we don't socialize. I don't really know him.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was another guy I met at the race, and I had no idea until I brought it up to someone in my hotel room. I had no idea he was responsible for the rise of Taylor Swift. And when that happened, I was like, holy cow. I definitely got my money's worth for the weekend.
Yeah.
I have to ask, are there any drivers that have became your friends?
Oh yeah. Well, my teammates for sure, because they helped me. But yeah, I mean, really, like Boris said, I would say hi to Tom Sheehan, the '97 car. Him and I are always getting mixed up between each other because we qualify close to each other. But he's a super good guy, and yeah, there's all kinds of guys that you say hi to, but we all kind of migrate to our tent or our tractor trailer and work on our cars.
That's cool, man. Good to hear. What were you gonna say before he asked you that question? Because I think you were gonna say something.
No, I'm not sure.
I think it had something to do with Scott Burchetta or something.
Yeah, I mean, just that, well, he would be, I think that he qualifies a little bit in front of me. So when we qualify, we all get lined up, and we're all just kind of hanging by our cars because we're not sure how much time we have left to get into the car, either for qualifying or for the race. And so if you're close to somebody, you're going to say hi, hey, let's be careful on the start of the race. Let's not take each other out in the first turn or something.
Okay, so that's cool to hear. What's your favorite track you've ever raced on in Trans Am?
I really like Sebring. The track, there's plenty of opportunities to pass, and it's very bumpy. Part of it's asphalt, part of it's concrete. So the grip levels are totally different. One one area, like turn 17, the last turn, very bumpy, very little grip. And so I've raced there a lot. So I have for sure some good track knowledge. And but being able to pass someone, if someone is a little bit slower than you want to get around that person, you want to get going, you know, try to get it as high on the grid or the finish of the race as you can.
So what is your remaining schedule for the year?
Well, we have, as far as races, we usually have about 12 races a year. Watkins Glen is coming up in just a week. Next week we'll be in Watkins Glen. And that's a double race. We'll race on Saturday and then we'll race on Sunday, assuming your car is not, you know, destroyed. Yeah, but yeah, our first race usually is the very end of February, beginning of March, and that'll be at Sebring. That's usually the very beginning. And then COTA usually is our last race, and that's usually like early November. That'll be our final race.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever enjoyed racing at Mosport or Mosport?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yep. It's a rather intimidating track. I think they've moved some of the barriers back a little bit, but when I started racing, I raced little Formula Mazdas there, and also Trans Am, of course. But yeah, Mosport, awesome track.
That's really cool. Just a question, when you're a driver and you're behind the wheel with adrenaline flowing, how hard is it to, when someone bumps you, accidental or not, how hard is it to keep control of yourself and not intentionally wreck the guy or show your displeasure?
Well, like this year, I've had a lot of problems with the orange Dodge Challenger or Charger, the 01 car. That guy hit me twice at Lime Rock and spun me out twice. The first time, I don't think he did it on purpose. The second time, for sure, he hit me and spun me out, which every time you get hit and spun out, you lose a fair number of positions usually.
Yeah, because it's not a full course caution if you get going, correct?
Yeah. And then Mid-Ohio, he hit me and just about knocked me out of the race. I was able to continue, but after a while, that gets you pretty pissed off, I'll tell you. And you know, you have to remember that when you're driving, you have basically a snowmobile suit on, gloves, helmet. And the car is hot. The car is probably 130 degrees inside. Now I have cool air, not cold air, but cool air blowing into my helmet, and I have a cool vest to try to keep my core temperature down. But yeah, you get pretty mad, and you know, it's kind of like Tommy and Amy. You know, there's always a payback there someplace, whether you're right or you're wrong. Tempers really flare.
Yeah.
So.
And the same with Kenseth and Logano and a few other things, you know.
Yeah.
Emotions like that run high in a sport. And that kind of reminds me, during the weekend in Nashville, there was a point in this series, Stadium Super Trucks. You know, you'd have to go back to a previous interview I did to see what I'm talking about. But there was a point in the race where two drivers got into it during practice and got into a little bit of a fist fight.
Oh boy. Yeah. You know, fighting about practice, man, I don't know. Practice is to get your car or your truck, in that case, really set up and raring to go.
I was really surprised when the trackside television set was showing what was happening. The crowd was all like ooh, or fight, fight, fight. And
Yeah.
when the drivers threw their steering wheels and helmets towards each other, I just watched it with a little bit of a mortified smile, like,
Yeah. Well, at 71 years old, I'm not looking to fight too many guys because most of the guys I'm racing for are, I have children older than them. So,
yeah. My thoughts when it happened were, part of me wanted to join the crowd, but part of me also remembered how I was raised, which was to not be vengeful and to not be, get into fights. And so I was like, I don't think my mom would be happy with me if I announced this. You know what I mean?
yeah, I think I'm more of a lover than a fighter.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I'm more of a lover than a fighter.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, Justin, on Doug's tremendous career in Trans Am?
Sounds like he's got a lot going on. I mean, Doug, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If the right opportunity came along, would you consider a road course in a stock car race? Because you're into road course racing and stuff, would you be interested in a stock car opportunity on a road course? Say
Yeah,
like
see,
Watkins
yeah, there's quite a little difference. Now, our races are 100 miles or usually like 70 minutes or 75 minutes. So, and that's a sprint race. You get in the car, you don't refuel, you don't add tires. But after 100 miles or this 70-75 minutes, I'm done. I am
You'll
cooked.
beat.
I am totally finished, especially on these days where it's 95, 97 degrees. So nah, I don't think I would. I don't think I would be able to do that. Now, the one thing is though, on the other side of it is when we're racing and they'll tell me 10 laps to go or 5 laps to go. I'm thinking, darn it, if we had a few more laps, I could get that guy in front of me. So when I'm in the car, I feel like I can drive all day. But the reality is, when the race is done, I'm actually a couple of times I've had the guys help me get out. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
That's why some drivers say at the end of the race that, I'm glad it's over. I've heard them say that a few times.
Yeah, I would say that if I was in the lead. That's probably the only time I would say that. Because when you're in the lead, you want to, let's finish this. We've raced enough. I want to win.
Yeah.
One win, huh?
So you have any other questions, Justin?
No, I think I'm good. I just want to appreciate everyone for liking our interviews, and Doug, thank you for coming on
Sure.
with us.
Yeah.
One thing I just remembered, I do have a video on YouTube. If you look up Doug Pederson crash, you'll see me in a little Formula Mazda and at Road America. And it's a kind of a short video, doesn't take long. So you guys look that up. It's kind of a fun one.
Definitely. The video,
Why would you-
everybody, is right here.
Yeah, why would you say it's a fun one real quick, Doug?
Well, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but that's the only time I've been upside down.
Oh. Yeah,
With-
being upside down. Carnival, right?
With fluid dripping on my back, which at the time I thought was gasoline, because this is the very beginning of the race. And I know that the fuel tank is completely full of gasoline. And so I end up upside down. Of course, it's not my fault, but and I feel this cold fluid dripping on my back, and actually more than dripping on my back. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, gasoline, man, I got to get out of here. But because I was in the lead of at least Mazdas, I have cars on both sides of me. So I know not to release my seatbelt until the cars have gone by. So it's a interesting video.
Just a question, what was it if it wasn't gas?
Oh, it ended up being what they call a puke bottle, just a little bottle where water or a little bit of oil builds up after time, and it's in this bottle, and it just happened to be right behind me on the driver's seat. And when we got upside down, the little hose fell out and spilled all over my back. But at the time, I mean, I knew it was gasoline. It just didn't happen to be gasoline. So I was very concerned.
I bet.
So yeah, Doug, can I close this out here? Since
Sure.
you open?
Oh, the wrong Doug, sorry.
Yeah, when there's two Dougs in the room, you know, it can be a little confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Doug Pederson, for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Yep.
You can close us
Thank
out,
you.
Dustin.
Yeah, thank you to Doug for coming on the show. And Doug, Kenny and I will have this interview posted to both of our YouTube accounts. Like and subscribe to both of our YouTube accounts, and we will see you at the next interview. Goodbye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.